And I felt like that white light was like streams of light that just cocooned me, kind of like wrapping every part of my being in this chrysalis of soothing waves. And instead of experiencing the pain of impact, I actually felt rocked and held. And on the other side, I could hear other angels talking. Now, they don't talk in English, okay? You get messages on the other side through telepathy and through vibration. And then when I came back, I was able to somehow interpret it into English. It's really mystifying to me, but that's how it worked. And the angels were saying that they wanted us, meaning us here on earth, to ask them for help. Our soul lives on and on and on. We don't really die. Yes, our physical body does die, okay? But our soul, which is our essence, lives on. It's time for you to get on your soul path and to tell people what I was given on the other side, which is now my mission. Don't be afraid of death. I'm delighted to be here, and I hope that my story and my experience can help people and be effective in helping them not fear death, because that actually was the ultimate message I was given on the other side. So my life before my near-death experience, or what I call back from death, a BFD, because I was actually pronounced clinically dead. So I think the terminology can be a little confusing to people, but I did come back from the dead and was resuscitated. And I will tell you, my life before that was very much, I was a people pleaser, a parent pleaser. I really didn't have a concept of who I was and what my own identity was. I grew up in the South, in Mississippi, a very conservative household, very religious household. My dad was an ex-Marine, so it was his way or the highway, very dogmatically positioned. And in order to be seen as one of his favorite children, I decided I would apply to the Air Force Academy, because they just started admitting women and sign up to be in our U.S. military. Now, mind you, my whole background had no military aspiration, okay? I was in ballet, I was a model. So I was not what you would call your ideal candidate for the military, but I was so into pleasing my dad and seeking his approval and love that I did it. And then once I got out there to the academy, during basic training, I knew, Lauren, that this place was not for me. I knew it at a soul level, but I couldn't quit, because in our family, failure is not an option. And when you go through this arduous process of going to one of our military academies, the mindset to think that you could just quit because you don't like it or it's not for you, my dad would not have tolerated that. He's just like, you stick in there and you gut it out, you deal with the pain. This is what you signed up for, and ultimately it'll make you a better person. Well, that was a lot of pressure that I was living under, and I had an immense fear of failure as well. So I lived with a lot of fear every single day at the academy. There was a lot of abuse going on there on all levels, and I just couldn't voice that I wanted to quit. It wasn't for me. So what happened was, I will tell you, from the very beginning of my near-death experience at age 19, my sophomore year as a cadet out at the United States Air Force Academy, I could clearly remember the white lights that I encountered as my body flew from this 1965 Corvette convertible. I'm putting up a picture of the actual car. And as
Oh
you
my
can see, I don't
gosh.
know, Lauren, how would you describe that?
It's wrecked. Am I seeing this right?
Yes, that is the passenger side
Yeah.
of a 65 two-door Corvette convertible.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so needless to say, I was ejected. We were both ejected out of the car. I was pronounced dead at the scene of the accident, and it wasn't until EMS uh, came about 10 to 13 minutes later. They took the blanket off of me that had been put on by some bystanders who couldn't get any vitals on me. And the paramedic, who I now call one of my angels, because I believe in angels and they come in many forms. And in my case, I had three come in the human form, and one of them was the paramedic, John Hartling, who was a former Navy SEAL, actually, very hardcore, and he didn't believe the word of the bystanders. Thank God. He took the blanket off of me and couldn't get any vitals on me. So the last thing he did was called a sternal knuckle press, which in the healthcare field, it's designed to elicit pain in the body. So they just rub your knuckles right up your sternum. And when he did that, the only sign of life he could get out of me was my right pupil. My eyelid flickered and it dilated. Now, have you heard of that phrase, our eyes are the window to our soul? Have you heard of that, Lauren?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so at that moment, when my soul was coming back into my eye, I was coming back from the other side, and that's how my soul got back in my body. And at that exact minute, they were able to get a blood pressure reading of me of 60/0. Now, the normal blood pressure is 120/80, so you can still see at 60/0, I'm in and out of death. They got mass pants on me to push all the blood up to my organs. I had massive injuries, massive, everything from my left foot amputated, my right wrist severed, fourth degree lacerations between my anus. And it was very, very bad. They had to do CPR on me the entire 20 minutes to the nearest community hospital. I was just, I was really just in and out of death that whole time. So it was something I didn't remember for 19 years, but I remembered those white lights. And that's one of the most consistent characteristics of near-death experiencers. Dr. Raymond Moody, who coined the term near-death experience, says that this white light is what most people talk about. And I felt like that white light was like streams of light that just cocooned me, kind of like wrapping every part of my being in this chrysalis of soothing waves. And instead of experiencing the pain of impact, I actually felt rocked and held. I have no memory, even to this day, of the physical impact of hitting the ground, because my soul, my spirit, when it ejected out of the car, I went through the butt up through the windshield. And when I got up in the air, my angel came down and my soul left my body and went off with one of my angels. So I knew I was going to die when I hit the ground. I knew it. I cried out, "Oh my God, help me." And I never hit the ground. Like I said, my soul left me before my physical body hit the ground.
For the first 19 years after Nicole's experience, all she remembered were those white, comforting lights. 19 years later, more suddenly came back to her.
So I was on my way to work, stopped at Starbucks, got a coffee, and all of a sudden I had this flashback of how I was sitting in the Corvette, and my one foot was on the dashboard and the other foot crossed over. I was leaning back and I was having a good time. And I was like, now I understand how my foot got cut off and all that stuff in my inside of my thighs was all cut up. And, because I could never figure out how my spinal cord managed to stay intact. And I did have, some really bad road burns on my face from skidding on the gravel. And I had a mild TBI, traumatic brain injury, but I really didn't have any massive head trauma. And I couldn't understand, how could I have gone through the windshield and not? But when I saw myself sitting in this position, I was like, that makes perfect sense. And then the memory kept unfolding, going through the windshield, my side of the car hitting the boulder first, flipping the car over. And when I got up into the air, my memory froze. And I went to my chiropractor's office and he was like, "Nicole, these are repressed memories. Your body finally feels safe enough to let them come up." And he said, so he let me talk through the memory that I remembered. And then I kind of got stuck up in the air and he said, "Okay, go home. Just be real gentle with yourself and the rest of the memory will come." And it did. The next night it came. So I got the incomplete memory back in 2 days. And that was the beginning of my spiritually transformative experiments because now I knew. And so the memory of my angel, who I called Casper the Friendly Ghost, I knew it was male and I knew it was probably in his 30s. He came down and took me to the other side, meaning heaven or this other dimension. It was in an upward plane that we went. And I was in soul form. Okay. So that means, okay, you're out of your body and you're in this translucent kind of what I call Casper, because he's kind of like in this, ghost form. Okay. And on the other side, I could hear other angels talking. Now, they don't talk in English, okay? You get messages on the other side through telepathy and through vibration. And then when I came back, I was able to somehow interpret it into English. Uh, it's really mystifying to me, but that's how it worked. And the angels were saying that they wanted us, meaning us here on earth, to ask them for help. And I think we forget that there's this whole cadre of spiritual beings that are ready to assist us in any moment, but we have to ask for help because we have something called free will. We have choice. So they're not going to intervene unless it's life or death in my situation. They're not going to do it on their own. And they want us to develop a relationship with them. I will tell you, each one of us has at least one guardian angel. Some of us have more than that, but they're with us from the moment that we're born, and they will stay with us until we cross over for our final time. And I can tell you that it's important to start your relationship with them because they really are here to help you. And people laugh at me when I say I asked my angels for a parking space. Well, I want to tell you, even today, I didn't even ask for help. And the parking lot was full. And here this person pulls out right in front of me, the very first parking space. Okay. And I was like, angels, you're doing it without me even asking. That was so cool because I knew it was them. I just knew I was about to ask and it happened. So that's the cool thing is you ask for things and the evidence will appear. They will come through for you, but it might not be how you think it's going to be. And I think that's the part you have to open yourself up to possibilities and to just keep yourself in this frame of mind that anything and everything can happen and just play with it and have fun with it. And I can tell you now, over the years that I've been communicating with them, I now know their names. Like my guardian angel, I have Seraphina and I have Violet, and then I have a team of angels. So please don't forget to ask your angels for help, and not just when there's a serious crisis going on in your life. The other message that I was given was Casper, who later turned out to be my grandfather. I'll tell you about that in a minute. He said to me, Nicole, you're going to go back. And I was like, oh gosh, no, I don't want to go back. I could see my body. I could look down in the ditch and see myself laid out. I can remember what I had on, my khaki shorts. I mean, everything was in detail. And I looked at that body and I thought, I do not want to get back in it because there's going to be a lot of pain and a lot of suffering with all those injuries, let alone the mental anguish, the emotional anguish that I would go through. And I was going to be reduced back to a state of infancy. I was going to have to be dependent on my parents again to do anything. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't walk. I didn't know if I could do either one of those. It was that traumatic to be reduced back to that state where everything that you did, that I took for granted, I now couldn't do. And so I didn't want to come back, but my angels said, Nicole, you got to go back. So I've come back and to tell you guys that, but also on the other side, it was real cool because our eyes can see like forward and maybe 30 to 40 degrees on each side. So on the other side, you don't have like eyeballs like we have here. You can see 360 and in the future all at the same time. That's really cool. The colors on the other side are brilliant, and there are more colors that are available and we have than, you think about the Crayola color box, there are more colors than that, or the Sherman-Williams paint chips. There are so many more other colors, but I can't remember what what you would even call the color, it's because it doesn't exist here on Earth. So there's beautiful colors. And you just made the comment, Lauren, when I came on, oh, you're so colorful. And I never had put it together that ever since that car crash happened, my wardrobe has always been color. The walls on my in my home, I've always painted them bright colors. And I couldn't put that together until you said it. It's like, well, no wonder I had such a colorful immersion on the other side that now all I want to do is wear these beautiful bright colors. So that's what I do. The other thing is with music, you can hear, like, this is kind of wild, but pull 7 songs that you love, put them all together, the vibration and the frequency of them melds together, and you hear a whole new song, but has all 7 of those tracks in it at the same
Oh
time.
my gosh.
So it's just really wild what goes on over there. And I will tell you, you can have dinner with Mozart. It's just really cool, what can happen over there. And I will tell you that you do see your deceased loved ones on the other side. I found out right after I published my book that I was sitting writing one day and I smelled cigar smoke, and nobody in my household smokes cigars. So I found that really odd. And then I hear this voice going, Nicole. And I was looking around going, who in the world is that? And then all of a sudden I hear him say, this is your angel. And I go, my angel? And he said, yeah, I was the angel that saved you. I was Casper the Friendly Ghost, and I am your grandfather on your paternal side. And I'm like, oh my God, Granddaddy Kerr. And he's like, yeah. And so what was so interesting about this was he came to me the middle of August, okay? And he died in the middle of August at age 58 from a massive heart attack. And he was an alcoholic at the time. And I was 58 years old in August when he came to me, and he said, Nicole, it's time that you know who I was. You're the same age as I was when I passed away, and you were in the car with a guy who was drinking, and now I found out later was an alcoholic at the age of 21. So they had similar past, but he told me I could see the pain that you were in. I could see the suffering you were going through. I could see how you did not want to be there, but didn't know how to get out of there, quote, saving face. And the only way to do that with your father was through something as horrific as a car crash, because I am now a 100% disabled veteran of our United States Armed Forces. And that would be the only, quote, legitimate excuse that I could ever have come up with to be able to get out of it.
That's such an incredible realization, story. It's amazing. When I first heard about this, my first question I had was, what was your relationship like with your grandfather on this side? Did you know him?
I didn't know him very well. I was 6 years old when he passed away, but I do remember him. He smoked cigars, he drank, and he was a workaholic. He had his own business, a family business, and he provided for all his other brothers. He all brought all of them into the family business. He was a very stern man in terms of upbringing, and I wouldn't say I felt love from him as a little child, but I didn't really get to spend a lot of time. I spent more time, of course, with my grandmother than my grandfather because he was always at work. But when I now know him as the spiritual person he is, he's so much fun and he's loving and he's just, you know, I have a picture of him in his 30s, and it's so cool because I keep it out and I look at him because he told me he would be with me until I passed on for the last time. And so he's one of my team of angels that he protects me, and I can call on him anytime I'm feeling scared. But he's going to always be with me. And I love that I can have this spiritual of who he really was before instead of the human form, which it wasn't a very pleasant story, especially when he got drunk. He tended to be more violent. That part doesn't translate over to the other side. You just get who they are in spirit form. And that's something that all of us actually have. We are born with spiritual amnesia. We forget who we are on this other side. that our soul is perfect. There's nothing wrong with us, there's nothing to fix. And yet we spend our whole human existence trying to fix these things that we were told by others and external beings and authority figures and organizations that is wrong with us, when in truth, at our soul level, we're perfect, we're glorious, we're radiant, we're beautiful, we're love, is what we are, and we are eternal. And that's the relationship I have with him now on the other side. Cool.
I love that. I love the idea that there's goodness in all of us. It's very
Yeah.
comforting, and especially thinking back to, I mean, my grandfather passed away when I was 6 as well, and I just don't have many memories of him, and thinking that he could be watching me like your grandfather is
Oh,
watching you is really sweet,
he
really
is. He absolutely
comforting.
is. We can have relationships with anyone who's deceased, because they're in spirit form. They haven't left us; just their physical body has left us, but their presence, their essence, they're around us all the time, and it's really cool when you can connect with them. And I will tell you the other thing: your deceased pets will also be there on the other side, waiting to lick you or greet you. Your furry friends, your feathered friends. Because think about it, Lauren, this God, this creator of this beautiful solar system, universe, whatever that we live in, he is providing us these beautiful animals to give us, and what some people will, the closest they'll come to unconditional love will be with their pet. Um, they give us so much joy and so much happiness. Why in the world would he restrict that from us and not put their little souls on the other side to greet us? No, it's God, creator, whatever you want to call it, is not like that. They will be there to greet you.
That's really sweet. I went to Catholic school and was told that no, our pets won't go to heaven. And I remember how devastating that was to hear. And I feel like as I've become kind of more spiritual, that's been was a question I didn't even want to think about because it was just really hard being someone who really likes animals. And now I've done so many of these interviews, and every single time it's like such a nice answer, such a nice sentiment. Like, yes, they will be there. And I love when people tell me that. Like every time I hear it, it makes me so happy.
It's such a disservice that these religious organizations are instilling fear in people instead of love. And that's my one of my biggest messages is God is love. Period. There's no duality with God on the other side. God is not critical, judgmental. Those are all, or the wrath of God is going to come on you if you don't do these rules, abide by these rules. That's all man made stuff in order to keep you in fear. And in fear, you can be controlled. So I tell people if your conception of God is fear based, then please start reevaluating your conception of God, because that is not what God is. And it is so freeing when you can let go of the fear and realize I can now live my life to the fullest now. I'm not scared to take, you know, calculated risk in life. I can live forever. I can live my life right now and not put it on hold thinking I'm going to be bad or unworthy or unlovable or all these different da 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 da. And it's so sad to me that they put messages in our heads like your animals won't be there. They don't have souls. Of course they have souls. My gosh, some of these animals are smarter than people. Um, and certainly more emotive. So yeah, it's really, I'm so glad people are starting to wake up and starting to question the generational beliefs that God looks a certain way, and they just fall into the same belief their parents had or the grandparents had. And it took this accident and my memory coming back 19 years later for me to start on this journey of, okay, God is not a vending machine. That's what I had believed before. God is something for me that is, it's an intelligence. It's not, what's the guy from Gandalf? Is that his name? The old man with the
Oh,
beard?
yeah.
It's not Gandalf up in the sky, for me, it is. I never saw that, and I don't believe that. I believe that there is no beginning and no end to God, and it's this love, and that's that beauty I talked about at the beginning with this white light. That is God's love that was enveloping me, and I was like an astronaut out in outer space full of awe and wonder. There was no pain, there's no negativity. It was just beautiful, and I could float in that for the rest of my life. In fact, that's what I was trying to get back to when I had another near death experience on the operating room table. The operation, unfortunately, they had to call code blue. My heart stopped on it. The doctor tried her best to get my heart going, could not. So they called time of death, went and told my parents Nicole passed away on the operating room table. We are so sorry. And then I was on the table laying there, and they were all putting up their stuff, and the nurse was about to attend my body, and all of a sudden my heart started again. So the surgical nurse runs to the chapel where my parents were and said, Cole's heart just started again. And I didn't intervene on that. I was gone. My body, my soul left again. I was chasing that white light. I wanted to go back to it because I was in a heck of a lot of pain. This was 2 weeks after the crash, and I was like, I don't want to live like this. And my granddaddy caught me again, and he's like, you got to get back in that body. And I'm just like, no. So I struggled with that for a while, to stay in my body and to stay grounded here. And especially for me, not having that memory for 19 years, believe it or not, I was alone for those 19 years. I just got involved in work. I went into public health and wellness, and I just immersed myself in work. I couldn't have a relationship, and I could never understand why. Turns out when my memory came back, I remember the cadet that was driving, reached out to make a sexual pass at me, and I said no. And he got very angry with me, and he turned the wheel of the Corvette, and the car fishtailed, swung out, and that's what hit, because he was speeding. That's what hit the boulder. So anytime that I got a man angry at me, I was like, oh, he could hurt me really bad. So I got to please these men. And so my people pleasing just escalated with that. I can't have any conflict. I can't let people be mad at me or angry at me because something bad's going to happen, was the belief system. And I will tell you, I also developed an eating disorder because my parents, when the doctors discharged me 4 months later, okay, I was in the hospital. I had to go into rehab to learn to walk. That was another 8 months. The doctor said Nicole needs psychiatric help and psychological help. And mom's like, thank you, but she doesn't. Jesus is our psychiatrist. And I love Jesus. He is my way shower. But I will tell you that Jesus never came down and sat on the sofa and said, Nicole, let's talk about your trauma and why you're in so much pain, that you are using food in a negative way to cope. And that's the problem with trauma. If the trauma wounds are not healed, your body will adapt in a negative, sabotaging way. And for me, that was compulsive overeating. And that was back in the 80s when they didn't know a whole lot about eating disorders. And now today it's defined as binge eating disorder. And I lived with that, Lauren, for 20 years until my memory came back. So talk about being lonely during that time period. My whole life changed as a result of that memory coming back and knowing what I went through. And that person that I was at 19, I was never going to be her again. Everything, including my relationship with my parents, everything has transformed in my life. And I have awoken to who I am and now remember who I am as a spiritual being. And it's now learning to balance my humanity with my spirituality.
I love that so much. And I'm so happy that you did finally remember that,
Me
because
too.
I can't imagine, like, it feels like how you describe it, it feels like night and
It
day.
was.
And was that switch instant then?
Well, the
How did that
memory
happen?
woke me up to, whoa, look what you've been through. The spiritual transformation has been evolving. I had to learn emotionally. I was very disconnected. I was very much in my head, and I never really learned how to embody emotions. I didn't grow up in a family that was very emotive. My dad was very much like, you don't get angry at either my father or my mother. You don't hurt your mother. These were all messages that I got, my siblings got. So you repressed all these negative emotions, and you just learned to be happy and to be sweet and kind and get along, and those other emotions were getting bottled up in me. Okay, so I had to learn how to move those emotions out of me. Okay, and those repressed emotions will eventually cause dis-ease in your body if you don't feel it to heal it and release it. So I went into NET, neuro emotional technique, and and I got certified in that in order to help people get at the root cause of why, when they hit a stressor in their life, they'll eat the whole pint of Ben and Jerry's, or they'll eat half of a pizza. They know they don't need to do that, but they're so stressed out from a trigger they can't put their hands on, why am I feeling this way? So they eat the emotion and they put themselves in a trance. I call them trances, whether it's alcohol, food, shopping, binging on Netflix, anything to escape the emotion that you're feeling that's uncomfortable.
It's so interesting how like being awoken spiritually can impact so many other areas of your life. And I think it's so cool that you have this science background. You worked for the Center of Disease Control, you became a dietitian. How does that um, conflict or not conflict with your spiritual side?
Well, I think, being a scientist, I look at things from all different aspects, and I tend to be a skeptic with things. But I will tell you, even in my book, I created my own. You Are Deathless is my book, by the way. But you see this credential right here, BTDT? Do
Yes,
you know what that stands for?
I don't think so.
Been there, done that. So
I love
that's the
that.
credential I came up with for being able to talk to you as well, not an expert, but I've actually been to the other side and experienced it for a brief moment. So there's some things in life that happen that there is no scientific explanation of, and there's no degree in it, and there's no theory behind it. And so that's why I tell people, if you have different experiences that you can't explain, you have to actually experience it to actually understand it and have it validated for yourself. Then use that, put that in your resume, BTDT. But I actually think it's been a benefit to me because I don't automatically go to stuff that's woo woo, and kind of like I really do look at things from a lot of different perspectives. And it's like with the white light, I thought for years it was the operating room lights. I was like, what is this white light I keep remembering? And I finally asked my surgeon, I said, what is this white light? She said, oh, Nicole, it is not the operating room lights. You were unconscious. She said, it is something, I watched you 3 times near death, in and out of death, and you came back. And she said, I gave up my hands and said, the medical profession can't help you at this point. It's got to be God, something greater than you to bring you back to life. She said, and it's something mystical, it's something magical, it's something divine that intervened and caused your heart to start again, because we didn't do it. And you certainly didn't do it, because heck, I was out of my body, so I didn't even know what was going on. So I think it's been a nice blend for me to have this background. And I do know, though, that the stuff that I was raised with as a Lutheran and Southern Baptist, that I can now question those things, because I was taught not to question the Bible, not to question my preacher or anything like that. And now I question it all, and I run it through and I go, okay, what do I really believe? Do I really believe God starts all these wars? No, man is starting that out of greed and power hunger. It is not about God doing this stuff. So quit and putting the blame on God. It's starting to look at things and really awake And I think that's the whole key to this is you have to really get out of this sheep mentality of just taking what everybody else says and discern things for yourself. And I will tell you on the other side, what I realize that God is within all of us. We are all an eternal spark of God, and you don't need an external conduit to get to God. And there are many paths to God. There's not one right answer. And in our healing journey, which we are all on, if someone tells you they have all the answers, run, because they don't, and it's always evolving. You're evolving, and that's what you were put on this earth to do, is to evolve from a soul perspective and remember who you are from a spiritual perspective.
That's amazing. Just the idea that it's kind of within us
Absolutely.
to heal. For people who are just starting their healing journeys, what's your advice to them?
First of all, congratulations for waking up and deciding to do this. It's courageous. I'm going to tell you, transforming is not for the weak at heart. It is painful at times. It can incur some suffering because you're going to have to address some things that are not pleasant, but you are going to finally wake up to who you are and be the being that you were created to be, not who someone else wanted you to be. So I would say, first of all, be gentle with yourself and take the word shame and should out of your vocabulary. Don't should yourself, because should is a very shaming word, and it's the lowest vibration of any of these words. It's down there with fear and worry. So anytime that you maybe screw up or don't do something right, don't say, God, shame on you, Nicole. You ate the whole pint. Why couldn't you just stop at a cup of Ben and Jerry's, And just be like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe that is something I need to address. Maybe that's my body's signal to me to start waking up, and start looking. There's something that my body is trying to tell me and I'm not listening to it. So your relationship with your body has all these this awareness and these memories that they've held on to and these emotions that are stuck. It's going to become your best friend, but you got to learn to trust it. And that's one of the hardest things, especially in a society that's taught you not to trust yourself, trust your decisions, trust your body. So forming that trust in your relationship with yourself and your body is paramount in your healing journey. And then you get to start from scratch, figuring out what you believe that's greater than yourself, and get as much information as you want. But ultimately, this is your journey, your relationship with the spiritual realm, and you have to figure out something that makes sense for you. And I will tell you, there are some tricks or some little tips. And one is, if you journal, which I recommend, ask your soul, because a lot of us don't even have a relationship with our soul. We don't understand what our soul is or what that is, what that looks like. Just put on the top of the piece of paper, what does my soul want to tell me today? And then just journal and see what comes up for that. And start this dialogue daily with your soul. Don't give up after one time. Same thing with starting to build your relationship with spirit guides or angels, this whole other realm. And you'll start realizing you're not alone. And that is one of the top 10 lessons from NDEs, is you are not alone. Physically, you may live alone, but there's a lot of people that are lonely, that live in a family. They're just not connected with them. They feel isolated. They feel unheard. They feel disrespected, unworthy. And so, this is understanding that you have got allies on the spiritual realm that are there for you all the time, and to start accessing them. One of the other lessons I want to talk about is judgment, because this is something you can do today. Quit judging yourself. This is great news, because on the other side, there's no judgment. You may have been taught that in a religion, that you're going to be judged. I can tell you from my experience and a lot of other people, there is no judgment, because here it is. The words bad and good that would allow for judgment to begin with, they don't exist on the other side. Bad and good are man-made terms created here on earth, designed to evaluate ourselves and other people. There's no judgment on the other side. Everything is beyond good. It's great, blissful, and on up the scale. So why there's no bad to even compare it to. So you're not going to be judged. But we judge ourselves. And I think that is the most harmful thing that we do is judging ourselves as a bad person or a bad daughter or, I'm a bad partner. And all these really low vibration, really terrible things we say to ourselves. And if you realize that you are loving and you are kind and you are doing the best you can at any moment in time, you would have a lot more compassion and forgiveness for yourself. So start implementing that and quit judging yourself and other people. Because we live in a society right now, especially in the United States, where judgment is at the top. Everybody's judging everyone and creating this fear instead of loving one another for who they are. And if you're judging, you can't be loving and you're never going to get to peace. But if we could put love at the top, there's no need to judge, and we will be at peace.
That's such good advice. Such good advice. Your relationship with your father was so paramount to who you were as a person.
Mhm.
How has your was your relationship able to change after your spiritually transformative experience?
Oh, yeah, we don't have one now.
Okay.
My dad is dogmatically positioned. He is right about everything. He's right about, he's become
Mm.
a mini minister. He is preaches in two different churches in Australia. He knows what is right. He knows what God said. He thinks he is, and my whole life, I saw him as God. And when he told me with the car crash that I disappointed him because I broke his rules of no drinking, no smoking, and no dating cadets. And then I also disappointed God, the Father in heaven. He has never wavered from that blame, even though the guy that was driving was drunk and the state of Colorado, charged him with vehicular assault. He was clearly to blame. My father still blames me for getting in the car with someone who was drunk and will never apologize for that, never retract that, and never release that. And it doesn't matter what I've said to him. It doesn't change the fact that, I disappointed him and he doesn't care about a relationship. His relationship now is like, uh, it comes with massive strings that I would have to completely disown my whole story in order to and go back to what they raised me as in order to get into his good graces. But I don't want to. I don't have any desire, and it's sad. But at the end of the day, I had to go through a lot of counseling in order to sever my relationship with him. And it's been very sad for me because my mother is very codependent with my father. And she has informed me I can't have a relationship with her unless she is in relationship with my father and Jesus. They're a three-stranded cord. So I can't have one with her because she will tell everything I tell her to my father. And, it's just, they're religious addicts, and it's just I'm never going to be able to get what I need from them. So I actually send them love and light and healing, but I can't physically in this time space reality in the rest of my days on this planet have any more interaction with them because it is too toxic for me to put myself back into it. And they're not changing. And I think that's the thing is when you have to understand that your parents are never going to change. You keep hoping and hoping that they're going to get you, they're going to understand you, they're going to approve, they're going to go, okay, Nicole, we'll set our relationship with God and Jesus aside and we'll see you for who you are. No, it's never happened in my case and it never will. My dad is extremely narcissistic, and if you know anything about narcissists, it's just not going to ever work. So I have to take care of me and setting boundaries and moving on with my life, and my message is what I've had to do. And unfortunately, in their physical beliefs here, I can't have one with them.
How have you been able to stay so positive?
Because I believe to my absolute core, and I'm so passionate because I have been given a gift this car crash turned out to be the biggest gift in my life, because it broke me out of the little what do I say, dome that I was in. And I now have become free to, like in space, I'm just free to be me. And I love me for who I am and for the courage it's taken me to stand up against these principles that the church preach that are totally lies, and that I'm free of that fear that they put on me and had me encapsulated with for so long, thinking that I was a bad person and a bad daughter because I didn't get along with my parents. It was always me that was the problem, and now I know it's not me. And when you have a presence of God and a relationship that's just pure love, you just really go, wow, everything just becomes colorized. You don't have to live in black and white anymore. And that is what the military teaches you with feelings, is black and white. My parents are black and white, all of these things. And, I wish they would have gotten help, mental help with their traumas. Because if your parents are traumatized and go get help, that trauma, they'll never understand your traumas. Never, because they'll just say, well, I got through it. I didn't need help. I'm fine. And that's just not true. They're not fine, and they did need help. But unfortunately, their soul will get to come back in again and do it again. And learn the lesson that they are meant to learn. But I'm going to continue to be who I am, and to try to help people not fear death, and to realize that love and oneness are the main themes on the other side.
That's amazing. Amazing. I suppose my last question is, how can people connect with you, hear more about your story?
Sure. Well, my website is www.nicolekerr.com. I'll send you the first chapter of my book for free. You can get on my newsletter, which I send out about every 4 or 5 months. And my book is You Are Deathless. And it's a near-death experience taught me how to fully live and not fear death. And it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can get it at your independent bookstore. It's also available on Kindle. It is on Audible. I actually voiced my own book, which I had to go back into therapy, because it's one thing to write a book, which took me 13 years, by the way, to write this, because I was so used to writing in a scientific oriented way for peer reviewed, journal publications. That's the complete opposite of writing a book about what happened to you. So 13 years it took me of sweat to do this. And I put my heart in it, and I'm authentic, and I speak my truth in it. And I hope it will be effective for some people, and especially the trauma realm of what happens, and my journey through healing, not only of the NDE, but what the last 40 years of trying all these different modalities to heal from my various health challenges and the spiritual journey that I have been on. And so it's available on Audible as well. And if you go to my website under You Are Deathless, the book images, there's the pictures. I put pictures in throughout the book of different things. You can see all the pictures there. But that's actually the first time a picture was taken of me in the hospital. I think that was about 8 weeks. And then here is another picture of, that was the actual crash site the night of the emergency. We made the front page of the paper. I don't recommend that you make it this way, but
Oh my
EMTs
gosh.
are all working on me at that point. But you can see the car wound up on upside down, completely smashed. So that's how you can connect with me. And I just, if you decide to use my book for your book club, I will try my best to zoom in when you actually have your club and talk to you about whatever questions you might have. In fact, I just did it the other night for a group in Houston, and one of the 5 girls there actually had an NDE herself when she was 10 years old. And none of her friends who she's been in book clubs with for years ever knew that about her till she said it. So I think there's a lot more of us around that actually have this experience. We just haven't been able to either remember it, or we were concerned to speak it because we would be dismissed. And that's one thing I want to tell you is, if you've had an NDE or an out of body experience, please write it up, submit it, because it gives more validation to what other people um, may have experienced, and it really does transform you. And it just builds the data pool of all of us that have had this happen.
Amazing. Yeah, and to everyone who's watching this, please use the comment section. I love Nicole, we get lots of really incredible stories in the comments that are very emotional. Like I really appreciate when everyone takes time to tell me and us, and I don't know, I second that sentiment.
So I just really want to say it's happened to more and more of us than we realize. And to be, here's the deal. I didn't think I was going to die at 19 years old. None of us do. We think we're immortal. But we need to be in the present. We need to be more mindful that none of us are guaranteed tomorrow, that we're going to be alive tomorrow. So when you speak with people and interact with people, please treat them as though you may never see them again, and leave them with love and kindness and authenticity, and listen to them. I mean, not to say you got to keep your boundaries with toxic people and all that, but just in everyday conversation, because you may not see them again. And so, if you say that to everybody and make conversations like this, it's going to make us more empathetic, compassionate, sympathetic, and hopefully change the narrative around death, and one to light and love and talk about how we really do just go back to where we came from. And it is letting these people experience that love from you. You become that light, and let your light just continue to emit at a high frequency.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole. I've really appreciated this conversation, and um yeah, just all the lessons are amazing.